we go.
All right, so Bill, I want to introduce Danny Weiss. Danny's a boys soccer coach for Philly Maccabi. We met as Maccabi coaches at Maccabi Games. I got involved as hockey coach. Bill doesn't know a lot about Maccabi Games. I mean, he knows that I coach hockey, and he knows it's like, to him it's Jewish Olympics.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, we won't hold it against you.
Cool.
Yeah, he doesn't know a whole lot about it, but so I've got 8 years in Maccabi. Danny, how many years you have?
15?
Coaching, 15.
15.
It's all new to me. I don't coach and I don't play hockey or soccer. I wasn't built for it. I was always football, wrestling, combat sports.
It's all right.
So, I mean, we're going to talk about is Maccabi Games are probably coming to Philly in 2027.
Okay.
Huge undertaking.
How's the city reception to it? Because I know there's a few cities that you went to that's not really good for.
Well, I mean, Pittsburgh, you saw the flyer, saw the social media post about, quote unquote sports washing. And when we would pull up with the coaches' buses at the end of the day near the dorms, about 2 blocks from the dorms, it was a very small protest, but they were out there. They were visible. They were there. When we were in Detroit, I thought the security was over the top amazing. They had armed security everywhere we went, armed security on the roofs of buildings. Security was exceptionally tight. I personally don't think it was near as tight in Pittsburgh, but from what I saw at rinks and from what I saw at places that we went in and out of, not near as secure as it was in Detroit. I thought Detroit, of all the places that we've gone, did the very best with security.
They kind of have to. I mean, to be honest with you, because of the situation going on in Detroit. I mean, I sent that video to you with just the neighborhood at 5 a.m.
Yep.
And a vet just kind of thrown off by the fact that a mosque was at top volume and it's not very receptive. My understanding of Jewish people. Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on over there. So I agree, and it depends on city and the level of security that's needed based on that environment.
Well, I mean, next year we're going to Toronto, and
Well, that should be.
yeah, I mean, Toronto's a cesspool of anti-Semitism. But I gather the games are going to be almost completely at the J there.
Probably.
Because I think the rink, I think they said they have multiple rinks on the grounds of their J there.
And they're having elections in Canada, October, aren't they? November? So things could change quite a bit.
I believe so. That I'm not really sure, but I think you're right on that. The time frame that is, so that things can change. It's a bit heartbreaking to see all this going on. Coming from the standpoint of America, where just do your thing when it comes to your religion, man, and don't push it on anybody else. Don't take anything from anybody else. And then it's bothersome, to have friends and family, and things like that they have to worry about where they send their kids to school. And
I mean, to put it in context,
sports.
Bill's an Afghanistan vet. So, yeah,
Thank
Bill.
you. Service.
Yeah, so it's you. I mean, you see that over there. You see what is really done by jihadists, and then you come back and people are essentially supporting these jihadi type groups and turning on, a religion that's really never bothered America. If not, Israel's relationship with America has been beneficial for the most part of my whole life.
A generation has been raised that to use and twist their words to meet their agenda. They are masters of rebranding. So to them, there are no terrorists. There are freedom fighters.
Right.
To them, in their minds, they're freedom fighters. There's the oppressed and the oppressor, and that's all they can understand. That's what they've been taught.
Yeah, and they haven't seen it, and they discount anybody else's experience. People have experienced with it. I could sleep when the IDF was around. I could not sleep when we were training the locals or the Arabs or Saudis or whatever to do what we had to do.
But in this climate, the Maccabi Games are super important to me because it gives Jewish kids or Jewish teenagers an opportunity to be around, have community with other Jewish kids and other Jewish teenagers where, like when Sam played club hockey here, many a time he was the only Jewish kid on the team. So when Jewish holidays rolled around, we didn't play on Rosh Hashanah. We didn't play hockey on Yom Kippur. So he missed games. And, kids don't understand that. They don't know what that means. Why? They wouldn't play hockey on Christmas, but they'll play a tournament that week.
We had a conflict last year for my daughter. She had to miss Yom Kippur, break the fast, because her coach decided to schedule a soccer tournament in Lancaster. It's the same thing if we had scheduled a game on Easter. Nobody would do that.
So their opening day here one year, opening day, they have every team plays a game, and they had the Philadelphia Flyers alumni play the organization coaches. I missed it. It was Yom Kippur. We went to services. I thought about it, and I kicked it around with my dad, and I'm like, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to play, be on the ice with Bobby Clark and the Flyers alumni and all that. And it wasn't the example I wanted to set.
Yeah.
If I set that example, then when is it okay? He struggled a little bit last year up at Navy. He went to services in New York. They were up in New York for games, and the rabbi got him a ticket to the Sutton Synagogue for services. He went to services. It was that important to him. And this year, he missed a practice to go to services for Yom Kippur. So, that got instilled in him. Maccabi impacted his decision to go to the Naval Academy because at the time, one of our assistant coaches, Greg Saxon, was a 2003 graduate of the Academy. And, had we not met Greg through Maccabi, we would have had no idea what the Naval Academy was. So when Greg heard that Sam was looking at engineering schools, he took us aside, took us to dinner, sat us down, and said, the Naval Academy is the #2 engineering school in the country. And that's how we ended up applying, going to the Naval Academy. Without Maccabi, that doesn't happen. And that's what Maccabi circles back to, is that community and that Jewish community, which I don't think exists anymore as much.
It's a cultural identity.
Yeah.
I'm not religious by any means, but Maccabi allows you to have a sense of community. And talked about earlier about everything that's going on, and I heard an unbelievable clip a couple of days ago after car drove into some elderly people in UK. And they were making the point that you go to any church, any mosque, you're not going to see armed guards standing outside. It's not needed. And the only place you're going to see that is outside synagogue. So you start having this notion of Jews are kind of on their own, and everybody's kind of out to get us. And along comes this set of games. Kids who might have a kid like Sam, who's one of one on his entire hockey team. You might have a kid, whoever, at their entire school, they're the only Jewish kid. We had a kid from the factory playing soccer. Not another Jew in the entire area. And he drove the hour and a half down to our tryouts to be a part of a group and have some sense of cultural identity. So for these kids from all over the area, all over the country, and really all over the world, they get together once a year, and they get to see that there's others like them. Might be a minority, but we're a strong minority. So it's a really great thing, and I keep a sense of cultural identity that these kids are then able to get. And then I have kids who come back 10, 20 years later, say to me, that was the most incredible experience I ever had. A week-long event. It's a really special thing.
And they play all different sports, but the one thing at the end of the day that we all have in common is they're all Jewish.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing. I mean, they used to do host families. So a host family could have a soccer player from Arizona, could have a hockey player from Pennsylvania, a baseball player from New York, all roomed together in the same house, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. We tell our kids we're there to compete. My dad and I have been coaching for years together, and we say the same thing at the beginning of the games. You want to compete, or you just want to have fun? And every year the kids want to compete. We're always striving to win a gold medal. But I tell them the second you step on the field, it's game time. But when that game's over, you're here for a bigger reason. You get to experience things you may never get to experience ever. And then you have this common conception that, outside of my little bubble that I live in, all the Jews, they all wear yarmulkes and taluses, and none of them are athletic. And I tell my guys, you're in for a rude awakening. There's kids who play at a very high level, who go on to play in college and professional. It's not going to be easy. And when they see the competition, they're shocked by it. Who would have thought Toronto would have as great of a hockey program as they do, with just Jewish hockey players? But they do. It's the same thing for all the other sports. So I think it's a bit of a reality check for some of these kids, but in a good way, that there are more people like them around the country.
Sam was very we were, in a touch of irony, 2018 was our first games. My first experience coaching with Craig and Greg, and Sam's first experience playing. And we lost every single game in Orange County, California. But we learned from that experience what we needed to do to get better. And, the type of players that we wanted to take. And we were still a small program. The next year, we won our very first hockey game, and then we won our very first medal. Huge upset. But on the Naval Academy hockey team last year was a plebe who played in the games in 2018 for Orange County, he was from Pittsburgh. So he was at the same games that Sam was. Now, two kids from the Maccabi Games playing on the same team for the United States Naval Academy is pretty cool.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, so when we were out in Pittsburgh for the games, that kid happened to be off the same week that we were there. So he hung out with Sam the whole week at the rink. It was awesome.
Yeah. How about the story? And again, it's just, we call it Jewish geography. Right? Everybody knows somebody. We have one of our coaches. He's been involved in Maccabi for 20 years. Harrison Singer. Great human being, amazing basketball coach. He's involved with USA basketball on the recruiting side. Long story short, when he participated in the games, I don't even know if you know the story, when he was, I think, 15, he stayed at a host family, I think in California. And the daughter of the host family, they became friendly. I think she was maybe a year or two younger. Fast forward however many years, they run into each other. Now he's married to her and has a child with her because he had met her at Maccabi. And there are tons of stories like that.
The games, that's the most impactful I can be as a coach. Now, I've coached high school, I've coached club, but the most impactful I can be as a coach is at those Maccabi games for those kids. Those kids know they're safe when they're with us, and they know they're going to compete at a high level when they're with us.
You guys are more than welcome to talk to each other because I feel like you're like trying to sell me on it. I've already bought in.
We're trying to
Trying to explain. Trying to explain.
Well, yeah. I mean, the only thing I can say is I get nervous when you go. It's weird. We're like family. You know what I mean? And some of the areas that they send you to, I think it's an atrocity that you have to guard kids like that.
I'm not going to lie. I was nervous when we went to Detroit. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm nervous going to Toronto.
I have never been nervous going to a set of games because I know the security is even more so than you're aware. We were in Stamford, Connecticut, 2000, right when I turned, 9 years ago. And there was an FBI alert for somebody on their most wanted list was spotted in the area. And we didn't realize at the time, but there had been snipers on the roofs of every single major spot of where Maccabi was located. And when they made the announcement is when you realize that there had been snipers all throughout. The security is significantly higher than you would even think of. And we'll talk about it, I guess, in a couple minutes, but when we host in 27, for me, as the chairman of the games, one of my major focuses is security. That's spared no expense. You're going to see it, and then some of it you won't see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I just mean that I feel bad that it has to come to that, that you need that level of security.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I went to synagogue. You know that we belonged to two synagogues for many years because my kids were in school. The small synagogue where I got married didn't have a school. So for our kids to get bar bat mitzvah, our kids went to Temple Beth Am in Jenkintown. And Temple Beth Am has armed security. They have the Abington Police that manage their security at high holiday services. My synagogue does not have security, so their security is basically a member at the door, just buzzing people in as they come to the door. I carried a 38 on my hip to services. I mean, I had a Torah in my hands with a 38 on my hip.
I was just going to say, their security was you.
Well, I understand from other people there that there are other people in that congregation that carry. But striking to me this year was it was sparsely attended. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, typically, Kol Nidre, you have a lot, the synagogue's pretty full with people on Kol Nidre. Yeah. The synagogue's pretty full the next day for Yizkor. Sparsely attended. I mean, we barely had 10 men on Kol Nidre to carry out a service.
Well, it's a risk reward, right? Is the reward worth the risk you're taking, especially knowing that there's no armed guards outside the door? We went to services this year. There were, I believe, 4 police officers and about 2 or 3 private security, each carrying. Had to be buzzed in. I dropped my youngest daughter off at the JCC for daycare. There are probably 4 or 5 armed guards. There's a gate that shuts during the day. Not to mention, did you guys hear what happened yesterday in our area? There were 4 guys who tried to rob an armed truck, and apparently they were on the FBI's list because they had been doing it in the city. They get almost caught, so now they're running around the back roads of Lower Merion. All the schools are shut down, and you know where my wife calls me freaking out. Our daughter's at elementary school, my son's in middle school, and our youngest is in daycare. I said, well, Marley's good because he's about 20 minutes away. Chloe, their school's on shutdown, they're not too close. But you know what? My daughter's got 5 armed guards outside the building. I think she's okay. Don't worry about it.
I mean, we were stunned, I think, a little bit because the president of the synagogue came to the mic before the service started and told us in the event of an emergency, in the event of an active shooter, where the exits were and where everybody should go based on where they're seating. He's never, ever done that before. We've never had to listen to somebody tell us that before. We're there to pray. I mean, these are humble people. It's a conservative synagogue. It's an older congregation, and they're there to pray. There's Holocaust survivors in that congregation. They're there to pray.
Well, I always told you. I mean, I can offer sitting out there with my weapon and my vest. I don't believe anybody should be inhibited from a religion or spirituality. And I mean, I'm Catholic, but I respect. I've met good people in everything, and I don't know. It really. I mean, you know how much it bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that. Just, you shouldn't have to have that worry. Not in this country, just to go to a house of worship, regardless of what it is.
Well, it bothers me that Americans aren't bothered by it. The everyday American isn't bothered enough by it yet. I mean, as a father of a kid who's in the service, watching Palestinian protesters climbing poles in Times Square on Veterans Day of all days and ripping down American flags and then hanging Palestinian flags, and nobody said a word and nobody lifted a finger. I'm deeply offended by that.
Wasn't there the
It's
whole
disgusting.
raising of the Chinese flag for the communist birthday down at Center City?
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't even know what that's going to. I mean, we're
Yeah,
deteriorating.
that's our mayor. Our mayor did that.
Philadelphia is one of the worst cities in terms of anti-Semitism in the entire country.
Or racism in general, to be honest. I'm in a mixed marriage, and we didn't have a problem in the South. We didn't have a problem in the West, like cowboy country. And then we come back here, and it's not. We had several problems, and it wasn't from white people, believe it or not. It was from black people just angry that we're together. The racism here is intense.
The Philadelphia School District has been sued multiple times and still doesn't, and still has done nothing to curb the anti-Semitism in Philadelphia schools.
It's been years upon years of building upon it, right, where it's just kind of stayed hidden, and now all of a sudden, this is their outing.
Well,
and you've seen what ignoring a situation looked like and what it will eventually turn into. And we're seeing that now.
Mhm.
And now people are afraid to stand up and voice their opinions in fear of cancel culture, right? They're afraid of what might happen, keep their opinions to themselves. And for me, you're talking about what people are doing and what people aren't doing. People who aren't doing it's because of a lack of knowledge and education. Their ignorance has gotten in the way of doing the right thing. The amount of people I still talk to this day say to me, "Oh, I didn't know really what happened on October 7th. Why did it? Are you kidding me? Have you been living under a rock? Have you not turned on the news?" But that's the majority of the people out there. And then the ones who are acting out, in my opinion, it's the majority of that Gen Z culture where they grew up on their phones. They're getting all their news from their phones, and it's a sense of brainwashing. Go to college, you have these professors who instill this ideology on you because you're like a sponge at the age of 18, and you're easily warped into what they want you to be. And then that trickles down to Maccabi Games. We start talking about it, where do the parents feel safe sending their kids? Right? Like when we decided to go to the games in 24, I didn't know if I wanted to go.
We had parents who withheld their kids from going to Detroit.
Yeah.
They were scared to death
And you
to
can't
send their
blame them.
kids. And I couldn't blame
And,
them.
and it becomes a balance of, do we let them get what they want by not doing things that we've always done,
No.
and the actual danger of something might happen, and what are the repercussions? I mean, what repercussions have we seen for any of this? What was the Jewish couple that was shot,
Oh,
killed?
and
Whatever
in
happened to that
Washington,
guy?
D.C.?
Yeah, whatever happened to it. I mean, like, I want to know what happened at the end of that court case. I want to know what the repercussions were. Like, is it like the guy that shot that girl in on Chestnut just gets manslaughter after he went and executed her? Now that had nothing to do with race, to my awareness, but I want to know what happens to criminals when they commit heinous crimes, and you're not seeing that. You see the murder of a Jewish couple, you see the attacking of Jewish people, but you never see the repercussions of it.
Did you see yesterday that is it Starmer, the guy in the UK that recognized Palestine? All right, they went to his house and protested at his house and vandalized his house because it's not enough for them. So,
Yeah.
he's finding out firsthand.
Is it the one in the UK? Because I know
It's
that
the one in the UK.
when the issue with that may have some repercussions, because when they started saying that it should be its own state, then they're talking about reparations for everything that the English did
Yep.
in that area to the trillions of
Oh,
dollars.
yeah, they said we want $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, smooth.
Yeah. So,
Ed, we're going to make you famous because, you're on camera even though you're not talking.
So my dad, when I was 13 or 14, I played in the Maccabi. I guess it was. I played in Maccabi Games in Scottsdale, and he was my coach. And then I played the next year when I was in Philadelphia, and I think he continued to coach. And he coached for many years, won a few gold medals, retired from Maccabi soccer. I got asked to coach in 2010, and I believe it was 2012. I got him out of retirement. We've been coaching. So you talk about this cultural identity, having a sense of belonging. It has allowed, and really more so Philadelphia than any other delegation. I think you could agree on that. When we go to the games, you have 100 years of coaching. 15, 8, maybe 20 years. We have a coach who's doing tennis for 35, 40 years, Harrison for 20. But we have this community of coaches who have been doing this for so long and feel so passionate about this that we're then able to pass on that message to our athletes. Great story. I don't know if you even knew this. We had one of our goalies. We won a silver medal in Fort Lauderdale. We won a gold medal in Stanford, as I was saying before. And he messaged me on Facebook about this time last year, saying, "Hey, Coach, I don't know if you remember me, but I was your." I said, "Of course I remember you," but I felt so passionate about my experience at Maccabi that I got involved with Federation. I got involved with the ACC in Baltimore, and now I am coaching the Baltimore soccer team because of my experience there. And then I shared this story. We created a Philadelphia Maccabi Hall of Fame for a way to bring people back into the community. You may have played 20 years ago, but here's a way to come back into it. And we're now going to have our 5th year. But I shared that story with everybody, and it really reflects upon how great of a community that we have.
So I don't know if you're aware, but our goalie from the games in San Diego was so impacted by Maccabi Games that he enlisted in the IDF, and he's on the ground in Gaza.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so they're doing fundraisers for him to raise money for gear and for food. I had a classmate who bakes, makes baked goods in Israel. She lives in Israel, and I had food shipped directly to him.
So when we have, so at some point, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but when we host the games in 27, stories like this, I want him to come and speak to the athlete.
If he's available, sure.
Well, if he's available, sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah. You want to talk about 2027?
We can talk about 2027.
It's exciting.
Oh, well, you know what? Before you get into that, I just want to touch on one thing because we have father-son here. We had, I don't know how many pairs of father-sons it was in Pittsburgh. It was at 7 or 8, something like that.
We were missing the Kohlers too.
Yeah, sets of coaches, father-son coaches, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's unreal. All right, 2027 in Philly. We have to get through Toronto first, but hoping the hockey will be somewhat local to here. We hope,
Be nice.
but
I
we'll
can
have
check
to
it out.
figure that out. I mean, the owner is Jewish, so we're going to appeal to him and see if we can get free ice.
So hockey, for as long as I can remember, I think I've been able to go to one hockey game all my years of coaching, because unfortunately hockey gets the shaft with money. Because if the JCC is here and centrally located, the hockey rink might be an hour away. So one of the other great things about Maccabi is, yes, I might be coaching soccer, he might be coaching hockey, someone might be coaching basketball or whatever, but you get the ability and the chance to go and support your friends or make new friends support their games. I love when I get to watch a volleyball game, something different, or go watch swim. I've gotten to watch one hockey game because it's so far away and they don't have the proper busing. And obviously there are certain sports that get favored. Basketball is by far the favorite sport of America. It is what it. I mean, the gold medal game this year was played at the University of Pittsburgh's official court. Meanwhile, soccer's off in some distant random field. It's fine. But when we host, we're going to make sure, I'm going to try my best, that we have hockey somewhere where kids can actually get and watch the.
Well, the JCC's right around the corner. That's where I started martial arts.
So the J that will host are facilities that are on City Line Avenue.
Okay.
So
St. Joe's.
by St. Joe's. So I gathered, you can talk about St. Joe's and the J there will probably host a decent amount of it.
Yeah, so I'm kind of giving some inside information here. So I don't know when this is going to air, but this is something we've been working on for the last 2 years. And Philadelphia has not hosted the game since 2011. And oddly enough, hopefully I'm not going to hurt anyone's feelings, but when people ask me about the games, I always say my least favorite games were the ones in 2011. It didn't help that it rained the entire time. A lot of games got canceled, but it was just the quality of the game. Just didn't think were there. So, and it's not to anyone's fault. And again, the weather probably played a big part in that, but we're trying to take what happened in 2011 plus the experiences we've had throughout the years in all these other cities, in Detroit and Orange County and Houston, and do something really special. Last year in Pittsburgh, it was the first time I did a campus game. So they had a college as the focal point. Everybody stayed indoors.
I thought that was a horrendous experience. Personally, for me, that was a horrendous experience.
Pros and cons,
know.
right? Pro is you get to walk everywhere, and if you want to go to a basketball game or you want to go watch tennis, you don't have to worry about getting on a bus. Unfortunately, with hockey, again, they were the outs. The con, you have to stay indoor. Transportation wasn't the best. But we're trying to take a little bit of this worked really well here and this worked really well there and actually listen to people and hear what they have to say. What we're going to be doing is utilizing a university in St. Joe's. Now, nothing is completely finalized yet, so the plan is to utilize an area like St. Joe's focal hub where maybe 60% of the activities will take place. The kids can have like their own Olympic-style village. But then what makes Maccabi unique for years is that you get what's called a host family. And within the host family, you get to stay with a Jewish family in the area, and they basically become your parents for the week. They house you, they do your laundry, they help feed you, they drop you off where you need to be dropped off. You get to have the full Maccabi experience and partake in more than you may normally partake in.
And a host family also, during the course of the week, like Daniel will talk about, they plan events during the, social events during the week. So, Monday might be at like a Dave and Buster's type of thing, or Tuesday might be at a zoo or a aquarium. Wednesday's typically a host family night. So the coaches have their own, dinner. And then the host family night, the one year I think in Detroit, Sam stayed with that family had 4 kids, and it was one of Trump's lawyers. So he took them out on a yacht into international waters, into Canadian waters, and on a yacht. And I'm watching, my kid's sending me pictures. He's laid out on a yacht, and we're in downtown Detroit, having an Italian food meal. My kid's living like a king for a week. And I think in California, his host family lived in like a man. What to him was like a mansion, because we live in a 3-bedroom hovel in Northeast Philadelphia. So they had food trucks and a water, like a huge pool, water slide. They had a block party for the kids, and he got to be in that. So just amazing experiences that that kid will never forget.
You get to experience the cities, you get to experience other forms of Judaism and different cultures and how people practice and how people live. But at the end of the day, you notice that everybody's still kind of the same.
Yep.
It's a great experience. It really is.
It's an impactful experience.
Yeah. And then I tell my athletes they can go on. I don't know if you've had any of your guys that have gone on and played Maccabi USA. Like my brother, for example, in 2017 represented Maccabi USA for the men's team, and they went and played in Israel and won a gold medal. They beat, I think it was Israel's national team in the semis, and they beat Great Britain in the finals. And then there were kids from there who got recruited professionally to play soccer over in Israel professionally. So
Sam, it was on our radar for Sam, but it fell over plebe summer. So he can't leave his military obligations to go and play. Yeah.
So full circle, we talk about security and people feeling uneasy to go. I was supposed to go in 2001, and it was because of what was going on over in Israel at the time. It just didn't seem like a secure thing to go, so I didn't go. And that was an experience I never got to have, represent my country over in Israel. Last summer, summer of 25, they canceled the games. Never done that before. And now you have all these athletes from all over the country. And I helped to do evaluations for soccer. They actually had tryouts in Philadelphia who flew in for tryouts. They didn't get to go. Now they're hoping they can have it next summer.
Yeah, we've had a few of our players went to Israel for the games in Israel, and they came back and they did say that the hockey was not as competitive, which I thought was interesting. The hockey was not as competitive in Israel as it was here, because I think Andrea and I were talking just yesterday on our way down to Annapolis about she thinks that Team Philadelphia raised the bar for the hockey by our goal was to be competitive with Toronto. We lost 22-0 to them in Orange County, California.
What was the score when you played them this year?
3-1.
And who gave Toronto their first loss like ever?
Team Philly.
Right, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due.
It was bitter. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet because we the top 4 teams were all very close. Long Island, Chicago, Philadelphia, Toronto were all very close games. So we beat Toronto, and we kind of laid an egg against Chicago, which would have put us into a gold medal game. So we ended up in a bronze medal game with Long Island. And Long Island, they still haven't had a kid age out yet. These kids have all been together now for 3 years. They're very, very good. And they pulled away from us and ended up, at the end of the day, they smoked us. So it was a little disappointing to come away empty-handed after beating Toronto.
Right.
It left a little sour taste, and by raising the bar to beat a team like Toronto, these other teams looked at us and figured, Craig does a great job, an amazing job of recruiting. Nobody's better at recruiting for the games than Craig. They're pulling from AAA programs. So, the way we look at hockey now is you could split it down the middle. There's highly competitive, and then there's what's to us like recreational. Because when we play a team like Utah, San Diego, by 5 minutes into the game, the kids are just passing the puck around. Like, I'm not there to embarrass anybody. I'm not there to run the score up because there's no benefit. It's not like a tournament where you're going to get credit for goal differential and stuff like that. So, like in San Diego, we were dumping the puck and letting the other team have time with the puck because they're there to play hockey too.
This is what we call, by the way, rock bottoms. It's the idea of don't embarrass you. And some coaches don't really follow it.
Yeah, it's sportsmanship. So our team cheer became, because Toronto routed us 22-0. And through the years, Toronto routed us many times. Two games in a row, we were the only team to score a goal in Toronto, even though we got smoked 11-1, 20. We lost 20-1 one game. Philly, Rockmanis is what we did on 3. So when the shoe was on the other foot, and we were playing a team like a San Diego that we could beat 20-0, we didn't run it up on them to embarrass them because we're not that team. We win with class, we lose with class.
This is a new thing to you, though, right?
Well, that depends. You could tell your House of Jews story to Danny. He'll appreciate that.
I went to college originally before I realized I needed the job as a theological archaeologist, right? So I love all that stuff. So House of David comes on. I think it's a phenomenal show. Who am I going to tell? My most Jewish friend right here.
So
right?
we're in here. I'm training people. It's an afternoon, and he comes bouncing in here all excited.
And I was very happy. Like, I was excited because it was well done. And I tell him, and he proceeds to just make fun of me. And
I said, sure, tell the only Jew in here. The only Jew in the room. Yeah, you got to watch the House of Jews.
And I still haven't completed the series because I hear his voice in the back of my head every time I turn it on. It's just...
But you got to have someone to relate to, right?
It was like he opened a Christmas gift. He was like, he was so excited to tell me about the House of David. I'm like, oh, yes, sure, tell the only Jew in the room about the House of Jews.
And then he started, like, because we a couple of our workout partners are black guys. He started to make references from the 80s. Like, what if I told you House of Cosby's? I'm like, we're up to date, lady.
Yeah, you could have go up to Exalted and tell them to watch the House of Cosby's.
Yeah, I was like, it's really good. I'm glad you're up to date on it. It was a horrible experience for me. Wanted to dye my hair green for a bit. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, but thanks, Lee. Thanks for taking a little
You
bit of
enjoyed
joy
that
away.
one episode?
I and I do know it's a family thing because Julia went up the 1 year and did journalism. Is that correct? Or didn't she go with you one time? For
Yes,
Maccabi?
she was a sports journalist, well, they call it star reporter. Yeah, she went. So she had an experience, and it was a pretty amazing experience for her. And I think how it's impacted her remains to be seen because she's still, she's a junior in high school now. She's thinking about law. And the more she's looking around at schools and following what's going on at schools, she's appalled by the anti-Semitism that she sees at schools and the protests. And there's an emerging major in anti-Semitism law that I think may be something that may pique her interest.
That's interesting.
To defend people who are...
How quickly we evolved with what's going on around us.
Yeah, it's an emerging major.
I don't like it. It's weird. Like, I love her, right? She's like my unofficial niece. I mean, my work, they're probably going to hear this, but she's not my niece that I'm going to pick up early. Sometimes when I leave early, but like it is definitely a feel like that. I have to protect her and I have to be there before she gets out. Like, I do not want her sitting by her. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, especially in that neighborhood. That's a neighborhood I grew up in.
So in context, like yesterday, we went down for Andrea and I drove down to Annapolis for the Navy hockey season opener. So because SEPTA is wildly inconsistent, if neither of us are available to pick her up, Bill grabs her up for us. All right. So like during the week, probably at least 2 to 3 times during the week, there's no bus. So either Andrea and I fortunately have jobs where we're flexible enough to go and get her. Yeah.
but it definitely is like it is. I want to be there, like on time. Like I don't want her sitting around just growing up in that neighborhood.
You want
was-
her. You just want her to be your lawyer.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, the anti-Semitism was big when I was growing up in that area, and it's substantially worse.
Well,
Now you're getting it from both sides.
well, she's seeing it at school. I mean, she had a student that she was a young man that was interested in her, and they go to class together with another young lady who is Israeli, and he was struggling with whatever the problem was that they were whatever the lesson was, and she says, "Why don't you ask her, because she's really good." He says, "Joya, don't you know she's a Zionist?" She was so fucking outraged. She wanted to choke that kid. So, that kid was taking homework help from her, and she went, "Nope, done."
That a lot of it,
Yeah.
I also think, comes from the household that they grow up in. For them to say something like,
Well, which was a little stunning because, she said his father was a Philadelphia detective. So to hear that out of his mouth was a little, like a slap in the face to her. It bothered her because they do know she's Jewish. She doesn't hide that she's Jewish, but she doesn't outwardly, like after October 7th, she wouldn't wear my Maccabi gear to school. She will not wear her Star of David out where people can see it. She did say they had International Day at school. The Jewish Club was the only group that did not have a flag represented because they didn't want to offend anybody at the school.
which
But they had their Palestinian flag. Yeah. Yeah. So she said this year they're doing it.
Did
this
they have
year.
a flag for Neverland too? Is there basically
I mean, I don't. It's that's what bothers me the most is kids that have nothing to do with anything. And I'm sorry, I know we're getting off topic with that, but like it's just
all relevant?
that have no, like just kids, and even if you completely disagree with how things are being handled over there, what does anybody here to do, especially the kids, had to do with that? And then, and I think you're right. Part of it is parents, but I think social media is raising a lot of kids now too, and that's a huge propaganda platform. What used to take this, what took the CIA decades and the entirety of the CIA to get rid of the USSR, their tactics can now be done by one person in their basement in about 10 minutes. And it's just posting something, straw dogging something, changing it, around what it is. I mean, you're actually showing maybe footage or something what somebody says, but you take it out of context, change, and people don't understand war. I mean, this is what was going on with Vietnam, and why there was such a huge hippie movement, because it was the first time that you're actually seeing footage of war, and now it's just so drastically manipulated. You don't know you don't know the context of it. If you think what Israel did after October 7th is any different than what we did after September 11th, you're out of your mind. You know what I mean? Like,
but to a better level, because
Yeah.
the civilian to soldier casualty, basically 1-to-1. Show me another war or conflict where you have anything remotely close to it.
yeah, and even our drone strikes are hitting like 92% of the people that we're not supposed to hit, or that one that we're supposed to.
That's why when people say, "Oh, this is a land issue," or it's a religion, it's not. It's a Jewish. At the end of the day, it's because people don't. And I saw a whole segment on this where, at the end of the day, the radical Islamists believe that if they can get rid of this one hurdle and obstacle in the Jewish people and annihilate them off the face of the planet, they can spread this notion of Islam around the world and become populist religion everywhere. But Jews are standing in there. So then they push out this agenda that we are evil because we are Zionists, and they change the definition of what Zionism actually is. It's just the ability to have a homeland, that Israel is your homeland. That's all it is. And they put out this agenda that it's a negative, that we want to colonize and destroy everyone else around us, which is completely false. It's, like you said, it's a form of propaganda. And then when you're funded by Qatar, sending billions of dollars over, and you're using tactics to put in false information, what China was doing or Russia from years ago during the Cold War. It all just kind of adds up in what you're seeing now. And unfortunately, I believe that this Gen Z is going to become a lost generation because they're so manipulated, so brainwashed, turning back.
Yeah, I mean, it's social media has become the algorithms were made for commercial use, which essentially is telling you what you want to hear. So the only thing you got to do is click on something once, and that's going to be your feed. The more you click on, the more you click on it, and people think it's real. We're not meant to communicate at that level. We're meant to communicate at like this, around a table, together, things like that.
But at the same time, it can be used for good.
But it's not.
But
Very
but,
rarely.
But like pulling together something like Maccabi Games and pulling together Jewish teens and pulling together for Jewish causes, it can be used for the good of that.
Anything could be used for good, and it can also be manipulated for something else. It's just who's in control of it, unfortunately. But I'm right there with you.
And that's why, like, I mean, I worry about everything like that. Like, since, I mean, even the cameras on the boulevard, I'm like, yeah, they're great now, and they may cost for the people who are running it now.
Well,
Everything
don't
starts with
get me started
everything
with that.
starts with good intentions, right? But like, eventually, somebody else takes control. The old guard leaves, and then you end up with who's in control of it. So social media can absolutely be a beautiful thing. It kind of was when early on, the connections you have and things like that. But now it's just such a large. Everything is manipulated, and the only thing that like honestly breaks my heart in any situation that's going on right now, anything that's politicized, is if you're going to be an adult and hate somebody, hate another adult, leave the kids alone in every situation. Just let them grow up, let them enjoy these experiences. You know what I mean? Let them do the sports, let them bond together over a common religion, you know, and lineage, you know, and realize they're not the only ones. Because like, I don't know, when I was in Wyoming, I mean, I think I had like two Jewish friends. One girl was from Israel. She was in the military, and one of the guys was like a local. He worked in an office, but that's it. Like that's in the entirety of Wyoming.
So you had a certain perception of what Judaism may have been.
Mhm.
I'll share really funny. I was doing this thing out in California years ago. This is right when I graduated college, and there were people from all over the country. There was this guy from middle of nowhere, Texas, and I became friends with him. And on the very last day, we had some time to kill, so we went out to the pool, and we're sitting out there, and he saw my Star of David. He goes, "You're Jewish?" I go, "Yeah." He's like, "I've never met anyone who's Jewish before." "Okay, what can I do for you? What questions do you have? Let me help you out here." He goes, "Honestly, I was told, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but the reason all Jews wore their yarmulkes was to hide their horns." And here I am hearing somebody say this, and at least helping him understand that there's not this, hey, we have horns, wear a hat on the top of our head, which I personally don't. But he had never met someone who was Jewish before. So, you know, it's interesting to hear you say you grew up in a small town, one, maybe two Jews. Here's somebody who never grew up or didn't grow up in a town with anybody, and he had a certain idea of what they were because of what he heard. Now, fast forward 20 years, to social media and how that's spread, and how many people now think along the same lines of.
Well, I did grow up in it. I mean, I grew up in this neighborhood when it was Russian Jew, but I was stationed out in Wyoming. So my perspective was a little bit different. Like, I was actually shocked there wasn't as many Jews, to be honest with you, out there. But I mean, we did run into conflict. The Israeli girl, we had one girl that was like super Christian that started giving her trouble. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And I was in charge. I'm like, you're in uniform right now. I was like, cut the shit. And she wouldn't. And then I took her in the office and I proceeded to tear down her religion. She's like, but you're Catholic. I'm like, yeah, but this is what you're doing to them. And just as much as you're hurt by this, that's how much you're bothering her. I'm like, if I catch you doing this again, I'm gonna ask they take a strike.
It's one of the things that I love about the U.S. Naval Academy. I mean, you know, as a parent having the experience there, since October 7th, Sam's class had 6 Jewish kids in it. The number of Jewish kids enrolled in these military academies has risen exponentially since October 7th because they know that it's I would assume as a parent and as a kid looking at schools, they know it's the safest campus in America. They're not going to tolerate protests there. They don't tolerate that bullshit there. There's no, the discrimination is it's non-existent.
How much of that do you think is fueled by the parents or by the kids? go?
That's a great question. I don't know. That's a phenomenal question because I think this year's class had something like 14 or 20, which, you know, from six is huge. But they are required as plebes to attend the services of two other religions. So, like his roommate during plebe summer, he had three roommates. One was Muslim, one was Catholic, one was Christian. So the three of them had to get up early, half an hour or 40 minutes earlier every day because the Muslim had to get up and pray. So they had to be up for that kid to get up and pray every day. So they learn respect for each other's religion by having to, by education,
And that's the way
attending
it
those
should
other
be.
services. Yeah,
The key word you just said was education.
education.
And as I said earlier, and I stand by this anytime I talk to anyone, to me, one of the issues is lack of education.
Mhm.
And by no means is every single person who practices Islam in this country a bad person. That's far from it. It's a minority of that sector. You have good Jews, you have bad Jews, good Catholics and bad. It's just the same for anything. But it's the minorities that have the loudest voices.
But those minorities also yield a lot of power right now.
Completely agree with
You know,
but
they yield a lot of power right now. They're in at the grassroots level in education, in school, and city councils, and local governments. They yield a lot, or wield would be the better word.
But look what
They
hap-
wield a lot of power.
But look what happens when four kids from all over different parts of the country, different race, different religions get together and they practice peacefully and respect one another and have the education.
And have a common goal.
Exactly.
They serve our country.
Right.
Common goal.
The problem I personally lack of education. And people just kind of get brainwashed and thrown down a certain path because everyone else is doing it. They're a bunch of sheep.
And they don't really understand that there's a spectrum of things, like you said. I mean, you have the extremist in any group, and then you have, you know, everybody just trying to survive down to earth and wants their own form of comfort, some form of religion.
Yeah.
Again, I wanted to be Indiana Jones growing up. So like when I went for archaeology when I first started, it was a very religious space. So if I didn't meet anybody with a new religion, I started to read about it. And I'll come across like Hindus and like it's Patasi now, so I'll say, you know, happy Patasi, or I'll say something to, you know, Muslim, whatever it is. I used to say, you know, happy holidays to you fuck you, Lee, because just make fun of me. But like, I mean, like I found that like if you do that, right, it doesn't, I'm not breaking any code in my religion. I'm being a good person, which essentially what Catholics and most religions are telling you to be. And it just, it shows that I have a little respect for it. You know what I mean? Like now that, you know, like the person who may have been Hindu that opened this, you know, that had this store that I go to and I get my coffee. Now it's, hey, what's going on, Bill? How you doing? You know what I mean? Because I just said, you know, happy whatever holiday was. And it's just educating yourself and realizing, like you said, exactly what people were experiencing, why they're believing this, you know what I mean, what they grew up with.
You know, I think the kids at Maccabi, and again, you know, to circle back to Maccabi, why Maccabi is important and impactful for those teenagers is there is a little education there, you know, in the opening ceremonies and sometimes in the closing ceremonies. There's a little education there, a little bit about the history of our people. They show a video of, in previous years, 1972 Olympics in Munich, Germany, where the entire Israeli team was slaughtered by Black September. And, you know, more recently, the opening ceremony centered around October 7th. So it's making kids aware and educating kids of their Jewish world around them.
Yep. Well, it's how they're brought up. Nobody, in my opinion, is ever born to hate, taught to hate.
Yep.
And the majority of the people I grew up with, they were raised in a sense of acceptance and practicing peacefully and living a good life. Have the complete opposite with a lot of these households is yielded what we're seeing now is we're going to teach you to hate. And all you have to do is Google a few videos and see the children TV shows that have been going on in Palestine, where you see the Palestinian Mickey Mouse teaching kids to cut the heads off of Jews. And then those kids who were 10 years old in 2007, fast forward now, they're the ones who are extreme fighters. So they're taught to hate. You have two separate sides where you have, again, I'm talking about my community. I can't speak for every Jewish community around the world, but you have a sector of people who are taught to live peacefully, respect your neighbor. And then you have a group of people who are taught to do the opposite. The Maccabi has been great because it brings all these kids together and it teaches you to respect one another. And it teaches you the importance of Judaism, not from a religious standpoint by any means. I think, Lee, you can agree with me. There's very little religious anything that's going on in Maccabi. It's about culture,
It's about community.
culture, and being together as
That's definitely important too, especially when there's bad times. Like, I mean, I joined the American Legion, right? Because there was other vets who've been through what I went through. And none of it's about military. None of it. I mean, we'll have like every once in a while, you have a few beers they're talking about, but you need that connection of people that have like life experiences to realize that you're not going through it alone. And it sounds like that's what an important part of the game is.
Our 2019 team did get a religious experience because some of those kids were there in 2018 when we lost every game. So they had a Lubavitch rabbi or a Chabad rabbi in the lobby rapping tefillin and praying with them. So, it's a thing I think at every games there's a Chabad rabbi, right?
Yeah.
So after we lost every game, we had lost to, that afternoon, we had lost to Los Angeles 9-1. So the boys went to the rabbi after lunch and they rapped tefillin and they were praying. I said, "What are you doing?" I said, we're praying for a win. So I said, all right, I can dig it. I'm down. All right, cool. So, I was bothered, losing 9-1 to them, getting smoked. Went to bed that night. I didn't sleep all night. And I made one roster change. I made one adjustment, and it changed the whole. We drew Los Angeles to get into the medal round the next morning at like 7 a.m. So, or no, it was an afternoon game. So we upset them 2-1 to go into the medal round. A team that beat us 9-0 the day before, we beat them the next day 2-1. So the medal round starts at first game's at 8 a.m. So we got to be at the rink at 7. So they got to get there at 7. So we're not going to meet at the J. I tell them, you're just going to tell your host families, deliver you straight to the rink. The game's first thing in the morning. So they said, "Coach, what about the rabbi?" So I went to, I forget who the delegation head was. Was it Amy Krulik, I think, was the delegation head? So she heard the story, and she called the head of the Chabad in Philadelphia, who in turn called the head of the Chabad in Detroit, and had a rabbi delivered to our locker room at 7 a.m. to rap tefillin with those kids. So I did Facebook Live so their parents could see it. We had a kid who was Orthodox who had to call his dad because he wasn't bar mitzvahed yet to get his okay for the rabbi to rap him with tefillin.
That's wild.
It was so cool. So we lost to Chicago 3-0. I had a brain fart as a coach. We lost 3-0, and then we played in the bronze medal game and won the game in OT. Yeah, it was a pretty amazing thing.
That's cool. You get to experience these things. Again, I'm not religious, but these kids get to experience something like that they probably never would have.
They'll never forget it.
Yeah,
They'll never forget it. Yeah.
It's great. I mean, that's what's really cool about the Maccabi is, again, you get to experience new things. You get to do it with a group of kids that you probably have never met before. I say it to every team, when we go, look around, you probably don't know each other, but by the end of the week, you guys are gonna be like brothers. And it doesn't happen every year, but I have a group of guys where sometimes they still talk 10 years later, 11 years later. I was out doing a race in Philadelphia last year. I get a tap on the shoulder from one of my athletes 10 years prior. We're catching up. He's out of college, and he's living with one of the guys from the team when he was 13. Now he's 23, 24
That
years
is
old,
too
and they're
cool.
still like best friends.
That's so cool.
And they didn't grow up together. They grew up on completely opposite sides of the city. So you get to experience these things. You get to meet new people. You find people you have things in common with, and it gives you a different perspective on life. I really do believe that. And then you get to hear the stories from the kids about how much it impacts, because you don't realize it. Right? Like, I love coaching. He loves coaching. We have our own businesses. If I sold my business tomorrow, I would love to coach, but I don't. So this becomes an opportunity for me to coach for 1 week of the year and try and make an impact on these kids, not just from an athletic standpoint, from a life perspective as well. And it's really cool to have that opportunity to see what comes from it.
So when we're looking for volunteers for 2027, we're going to be looking at guys like you.
Me?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. I mean, I'm Catholic, but I'll hang out.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I told you, I'm already, I got the hardest part out of the way.
Well, we'll feed you.
And I need a head of security.
Well, I think I told you I have somebody
yeah.
for you. Yeah. Yeah. But he could be security here at the rink.
By the way, how cool would it be to get the gold medal game played at like the Wells Fargo Center, which I don't even think it's called the Wells Fargo Comcast Center. What's the new stadium going to be called? It's not Wells Fargo anymore.
No
I think
idea,
I think
no
it's
idea.
the Comcast Stadium.
No
Have the
idea.
gold medal game played right there. on the
That's
ice.
pretty sick.
It was just easier when it was Veteran Stadium, because no matter who bought it, it's still Veteran Stadium.
Right.
Yeah. Core states. I can't even keep track anymore of that.
But that's not, like that's what we want to do. I don't want to have boring evening activities where we go to. I want to have like the gold medal hockey game. I have everybody come and watch it. How cool would that be?
That is sick.
So we want to do things differently. We want to have more of the games as a focus. Have everybody come and watch.
Something that's pretty cool that the academies have done at the Army Navy game. A few years ago, it was in Boston during Hanukkah. They got the owner, because he's Jewish, Robert Kraft, to do the service in the stadium with all those, the candle lighting, everything was stupid cool. And Jeffrey Lurie is Jewish. Maybe they could pull something off with Jeffrey Lurie.
We're working on a few things, but we have a couple people we're talking to who are very greater Philadelphia area. I could probably name 5 or 6 people who are close to, if not the billionaire status, who are of the tribe. So we have quite a few people that we're trying to talk to. I believe birds of a feather flock together. Once you get one of them in,
You're gonna get more.
You're going to get more. They're going to want to participate. And then at the end of the day, I've been working hand in hand with the CEO, Alan Schur of the JCC, and the idea is we're using these games, we're trying to use these games as a platform to rebuild the Jewish identity in Greater Philadelphia. From what I've seen, you have so many smaller segments. You have a networking group, you have this club, or you have this JCC, or this synagogue, and everyone kind of does their own thing. When you go to other communities around the country, San Diego, I've been using an example, they all work together. Common goal. Oh, you got from this donor, let's all work together. Philadelphia, for whatever reason, it's kind of every man for themselves. For the last year and a half, I've been trying to bring different groups together. And with the help of Alan and Barry, I think we're really starting to build something. So the idea is, let's use this as a stepping stone to rebrand the community, and then to eventually, because our JCC, I've been to 14 or 15 of them now across the country. Our JCC is the crappiest JCC that I've been by far. And there's other reasons for that. Beautiful old style building, but the building's falling apart. And they're putting Band-Aids on a broken arm because they're trying to reduce things. But we need to have a new staple for the Jewish community. And I think by hosting the games, bringing people in, rebuilding an emotional attachment to the Maccabi experience into the JCs, we can then use that to then rebuild, have a central point for the Greater Philadelphia area. It's kind of like what the YMCA,
Yeah.
but maybe to a big extent.
Looking forward to 2027.
Yeah, I mean, I essentially, I don't want to say I grew up, but my high school years and my college years were spent at the JCC here.
Where'd
for
you go to high
martial
school?
arts. I went up at Swenson, right around the corner from here, and that's where I met Dave.
Yep.
And I took martial arts there, but then he got me a membership, and you could see the community center. It was just a good time, and there's a lot of interesting, when they found out I was going to the military, a lot of interesting older guys that served during World War II would come out and tell me stories, and tell me what to watch out for, things like that.
I was
So
the assistant athletic director there for 7 years.
Yeah, so I mean, it was unique, and I would see the kids come in, like if I did a morning run or something on the track, I would see the kids come in for their daycare and their schooling and things like that, and hear their prayers and things, and it definitely a cool experience. Nice to see that strong again, because it seemed pretty strong when I was growing up.
Yeah. I mean, look, the JCC, it's not, at my daughter's school, I would say maybe 75% are actually Jewish, but not everyone's Jewish. That goes, at the end of the day, it's a community center. And because within Judaism, especially a place like the JCC where it's not religious, hey, you want to be a part of it, come on in. They're not going to restrict memberships for you to. Hey, if you're not wearing a Star of David, you're not allowed in. They're not going to. They're not going to do that.
My buddy was he was a Navy guy, and he was as Catholic could be, but his mom was dead broke, and the JCC had a daycare, so he knew all the Jewish prayers because he would go to daycare with all the Jewish kids, and one of the guys we worked with at the VA is like, no, that's not, and he would do the prayers in front of because that guy was Jewish, and he was like, oh my God, you do know that?
So you know, when I worked at Holy Redeemer, both my kids went to daycare there, right?
Oh yeah, did it?
All right, so daycare was like 25 yards from our door, so it was very convenient. So when Julia went, there was a teacher there who took it upon herself to teach Julia all about Jesus. So it was Passover, I think, and we're at the table, and Julia's telling my dad that for him to go to heaven, he has to accept Jesus, and Jesus loves him. And my dad's looking at me, going, "What the fuck is going on here?" So I said to her, I asked the teacher to stop. I said, "Look, I appreciate we're the Catholic, daycare and all that, but she took a special interest in my kid." So I asked her to respectfully, I asked her to, knock it off, and she didn't. So I said to Julia, I said, you go to Mrs. Kathy. I said, you tell her you know where Jesus is. And I said, and when she asks you where, you tell her he's in prison because that's where everyone finds him. So she, in front of the whole class, she did, and she never taught her about it again.
Your poor child. I mean, I know what was happening was kind of wrong, but your poor kid, you just set her up to.
Oh, that was the best. I mean, to hear other teachers tell that story was the best.
How old was she at the time?
Like 4.
Well, that and foxholes, I guess. There's no atheists in foxholes. That is absolutely true.
Makes for a good story, at least. That's
So we're at an hour and 6 minutes.
All right, I think we can wrap it up.
I appreciate the time, guys.
All right.
It's great.
Thanks for
being here.
coming out.
Thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.